President Bola Tinubu yesterday congratulated Osun State Governor Adeleke on his re-election for another term of 4 years. Tinubu urged him to unite the people after a divisive electioneering process. The president described Adeleke's re-election as a fitting assurance that democracy will continue to flourish in Nigeria under the All Progressive Congress administration. Celebrating Adeleke's victory, former President Olusegun Obasanjo paid his surprise congratulatory visit to Adeleke at Osogbo on Sunday night. Messages of congratulations also came from across the country as prominent politicians, political parties, and civil society organizations hailed the vote and offered advice on harmonious coexistence. Governor Adeleke has also appealed for restoration of peace and unity among Osun people and reaffirmed his endorsement of President Bola Tinubu for a second time in 2027 election, saying that the president remained the son of Osun State.
Today, the issues are settled by the grace of God and people. I therefore dedicate this victory to the good people of Osun State. I deeply appreciate your resilience, your strong will, and your unwavering commitment to democracy. As you have trusted me again for the second term in office, I will not disappoint you. At this point, I must deeply appreciate Mr. President, His Excellency, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for his strong support for a free and fair election. Mr. President is a son of Osun State, and I hereby reaffirmed my earlier endorsement of him for a second term in the 2027 presidential election. Today,
well, the Bank of Industry Limited, BOI, has secured strong institutional demand for its maiden 250 billion naira Series 1 fixed-rate bond, with the offer oversubscribed within 5 working days. The performance demonstrated the domestic capital market's capacity to mobilize long-term funding for productive investment in the country. Commenting on the milestone, Managing Director, Chief Executive, BOI, Dr. Olashupo Olusi, said the outcome demonstrated the ability of the domestic market to support development financing on a large scale. Olusi attributed the strong demand in part to interventions by President Bola Tinubu, particularly executive approval for incentives designed to encourage investors to participate in the bond. Olusi disclosed that a 100 billion naira fund approved for the bank by Tinubu would be deployed to blend bond pricing and cushion the effects of high interest rates for manufacturers and other BOI customers. Now, the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, has filed a fresh 10 billion naira fundamental rights suit against the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, that's the ICPC, alleging that the agency has prevented his wife and son from visiting him in custody. He alleged that his wife, Aishatu Asabe, and son, Abba El-Rufai, were prevented from accessing him despite an existing court order permitting visits by his family members and legal representatives. The former Kaduna governor alleges that the repeated denial of access to his family members had prevented them from providing him with food, medication, and other necessities. According to him, the alleged restriction violated his rights to dignity, private and family life, as guaranteed under Sections 34 and 37 of the Constitution, as well as Articles 5 and 18 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Well, those are the stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back from...
Well, I wanted to say Oshogbo, but you went beyond Oshogbo.
Yes,
Ede, Elisha.
Yes.
Look forward to hearing. I saw that yesterday. Brilliant report. Look forward to getting your eyewitness reports from the elections.
This is your new song. Oju Towo, Oju Towo, 50,000. Oju Towo, Owo Wogbo, Oju Towo, Oju Towo,
Rufai, good morning.
50,000. Owo Wogbo.
So that means that money entered the forest. waste. It means
Money
only
into
went
the
to
forest,
waste.
literally.
Literally,
But money
yes.
was disgraced. What are you going to do
Disgraced,
with it? With the 50,000 they shared, nothing happened.
Nothing. Okay,
Nothing
since we've
happened.
started on the singing note, let's get straight into the Osun State elections this morning. Rufi, good morning. We're missing Dr. Bati today.
Morning, how are you?
Gosh, what a weekend. What an election. And, analysts and observers weren't wrong in saying that this was a very important off-cycle election because it's the last one before the major one come 2027 January. And so all eyes were on a different number of things. All eyes on INEC, watching to see INEC's performance. People had said this was a litmus test for INEC as to whether or not they were ready or the assurances that they'd given Nigerians would materialize. Eyes on federal might and interference, perceived interference by the president. To what extent will the APC want to get back Osun State and how far in terms of the length will they go? All eyes, of course, on Governor Adeleke, Governor Jackson Ademola Adeleke. As there's a song that singers were singing, there's a song that's also been going around. Ademola temle omoreo, God don't help him. It's like Great Man Attack It. And it's just a fitting song because it's like Ademola that you said you did not know. See how God has helped him and then the dance, and so as a dancing governor. But let me come back to a quotable quote moment from the Arise News Town Hall, which took place last week. This is what Governor Adeleke said. You don't know me, I'm a bulldozer. They are not calling me Action Jackson for nothing. And the bulldozer bulldozed his way back to Government House for his second term. Action Jackson showed them what he's capable of. He's not just good at dancing, he's also good at winning elections. But those are some of the things that have come out of the last of the weekend. But let's look at some of the things in terms of lessons learned, some of the trends that we saw, and of course a focus on INEC. Earlier today, during daybreak, they had the CPS, the Chief Press Secretary to the INEC Chairman, Dayo Ketola, speak on that, and he had a few things to say with regards to the assessment of INEC's performance over the last weekend. But let's start off. Let me start with the people. Let me say something. Osun people, I give you hand. You people are the real MVPs and the real winners. Yes, Governor Adeleke won on the ballot, but you people are the real winners of this election. And this is why I say that. Because what this election demonstrated is that politics is still very grassroots. Recall that we had a retinue of bigwigs from the APC, and this is not a shade, and this is a lesson, I believe, for all political parties, and even for Nigeria as a whole. We saw the governors, we saw, people coming to threaten that we will come and give you this. We had a state governor bring his own hype men come to the state and say we're collecting it back. We had a lot of voices, and like I said last week, it was like before a boxing match, how the big wigs will come out and beat their chest and say we'll finish him. But guess what? The people's voices still spoke louder than the might of politicians, akin to a David and Goliath situation. I was reading Monday Lines by Dr. Lasisi Olagunjo. I read it every Monday morning. Brilliant piece always. And he was talking about the Davidic and Goliath illustration or what played out in Osun State, that despite all these big wigs and powers and monies that were being donated, the people of Osun State spoke loudly. So what does that teach us for 2027? We keep saying that the office of the citizen is the most important office in the land. Your votes matter, and that's why, irrespective of what was happening prior or before the elections, I was emphasizing at the end of the day, you are the one that has the votes. The ballot is in your hands. You're the one that has the responsibility and the power to choose who you want to choose. The next thing, of course, was they protected their votes. We saw clips and we heard reports from Osun State how the people stood gidigba, in Yoruba language, stood and watched the counting of their votes, ensured that the INEC officials were behaved and were in order. I mean, that's not their responsibility, but was part of their active citizenship, ensuring that their votes did not just end at casting their ballots, but they also stood there to ensure that their votes were counted. It was transmitted using BVAS to IREF portal, and some of them I heard even chased vehicles to the collation centers to ensure that there were no hanky-pankies or glitches on the way to the collation centers. So these are some of the things. Then also, when post that, the people remember, and this is what politicians should learn, that when you cannot fail the people and then during election do some razzmatazz and expect that they would have amnesia. Some of the experiences or why people voted for Governor Adeleke was the payment of salaries. That was a key talking point. They said that during Rauf Aregbesol's tenure, he owed half salaries for up to 30 months. Unfortunately, Governor Boyega Oyetola had the opportunity to come into office and change that narrative or repair the damage that was done, but he didn't. But guess what Governor Jackson did, Adeleke? He paid the salaries and the people remembered. And so for some people, they were sending voice notes, having conversations that on this matter, we die there or we sleep there, as the case may be. Then, of course, we cannot ignore, and this is going into 2027 election, and I believe that because of the role that Davido played, we're going to see political parties looking for their own star influencers. Star power was wielded in such a powerful way. Now, it wasn't just about the influence of his person, because many people could have done that. I mean, Governor Rauf Aregbesola was dancing on stage. Dino Melaye became a hype man, was dancing and singing. It was that he used that platform on his social media for live updates of what was going on in Osun State. He became a reporter, as it were. This is happening here, calling out, even mentioning names. I mean, that's another story. But also, using his platform to advocate. And this is where we talk about, where stars in Nigeria, celebrities, influencers can use their influence in nation building, not just in supporting a political party, but pushing a cause, supporting the nation as a whole. And then the leader. People have talked about the charisma, the relatability of Adeleke. One lesson ahead of 2027 is that you can no longer hide behind your spokespersons or not connect with the people who see you as a leader. All these talks around coming out for conversations, debates, town halls, engaging with your people, it's not last minute to start coming out and people don't even know who you are, what you stand for. If your strategy is dance, if it is going to meet people, that market women, the rural areas, talking to them, sharing your ideas, this is the time for that. And then, of course, let me end by saying what the advice as quoted in Dr. Lasisi's article this morning, given by Idi Amin to boxers, about if there's a perception of the referee not being in your favor, the only option you have is not to win by points, but through a knockout. What we saw over the weekend was a knockout. It was difficult to dispute the results. You know why? Number one, the fact and the data is there. Number two is that the people, you could see from, and I'm sure, Vimba, you share the video of the initial reactions when the results were announced, and there was a genuine happiness, love from the people. Beyond that, of course, was also the fact that you could see that he had reached out to the people, done the work, and then the margins were very clear. And so going into the next elections for opposition parties is that you cannot just win on points and just on calculations and permutations. You must win clearly, that there's almost little or no room to dispute the results of the elections. I would have talked about voter apathy, vote buying, but I yield the floor to you and Rufai to take on the stories. And of course, INEC's performance, one line on that. They did well on logistics, but BVAS is still an issue to look into with regards to challenges ahead of 2027. Bye.
Absolutely. Goodness, so well said. I love your ginger this morning. And I think this is what happens when... God don't help her. God don't help her. Which one should I sing? Even for those who don't support the governor, this was a showcase of what democracy can look like and feel like. And I think that's why there's a sense of jubilation across the board. And I've seen statements even from the ruling party where they acknowledge that something formidable happened in Osun State. So I'll break it down into a number of things. Let's start with the political intrigues. The political intrigues were that, as Ayo spoke about, Governor Ademola Adeleke is a governor who was able to do something that his predecessors struggled to do. That's also giving a context of Osun State being a state that has a high population of civil servants. So when you don't pay their salaries, there's a big impact on the local economy. Now, this is somebody who contended with a local government crisis where funds were withheld, but somehow was still able to meet those commitments. I was saying in my analysis yesterday that many people on the ground actually feel that he's using his personal money to meet up with some of those commitments. Of course, this may just be a perception. However, that perception went a very long way in getting people's buy-in into his leadership and into his capacity as a governor who has the people at heart. So what does that mean? It means social contract is valuable, and social contract matters when it comes to election time, because when you do something good for the people in return will do a good turn for you. So that's on that side. On the other side was Osun East and the role that it played. Now, we know that Governor Adeleke is from Osun West. So was Ambo, the candidate of the APC, Oyebamiji, is also from Osun West. Now, the permutation was that if Oyebamiji of APC was to get this tenure, that the West would now have an extended 4 years, because he would likely have to sit for 8 years, meaning that Osun East, who are counting down in the next 4 years to have their turn, would miss out. How did that play out? Well, there are allegations of some members of the APC working against the APC because they want their turn to come in the next 4 years. Beyond that, when you look at Osun East, remember Senator Fadahunsi is also from Osun East. Was there an impact of the violent rhetoric, although he withdrew it? But what was the impact of that rhetoric? Does it mean that some Accord loyalists or voters for Accord didn't turn out as highly as they could in Osun East because they were worried of that rhetoric translating into something on election day? It's a conversation to be had. Let me move to the next section of my analysis, which is the will of the people, or what we are all now calling the spirit of Owo Ogbo. Now, if all Nigerians can imbibe the spirit of saying, okay, they want to buy our votes, but we will throw that money into the bush. I saw I discussed with some people on the streets who were saying, I bought tilapia. Someone said, I took the money, I went and bought efo. This one said, I went and bought gari for my family for the month, and so forth. So they collected the money, but they still knew that their future, their civic duty is not worth up to 50,000 as alleged was being shared in some instances. Now, it was interesting how the money was being shared, because we've evolved from a place where cash is being carried around. Yes, we are aware that cash transfers, POS operators and so forth are being used in the process. But like I was saying yesterday, I was directed, a friend of mine gave me a tip-off and said, go and buy Puff Puff. I said, why are you sending me to buy Puff Puff? It's when I got to the Puff Puff sellers that I realized that was the headquarters of all the transactions that were happening. So the petty traders surrounding the polling units are now being used because they're not allowed to be there, but we overlook their presence there because we say, well, people are standing in the queue, they'll want to munch on things. So moving forward, we're going to have to rethink allowing petty traders to operate on a day that's supposed to be no movement and no business activity, because they are now providing a cover for vote buying and for other nefarious activities. I feel the presence of EFCC could be stronger. The presence of ICPC could also have been stronger, because it's not the duty of the police, the soldiers. I even saw immigration there on the ground. It's not their duty to chase after vote buyers, especially when it's so well hidden. Because, is a policeman going to come to you and ask you why you're buying Puff Puff? They don't have the jurisdiction to do that. We'll start accusing them of interfering in the process. But on a larger scale, as we count down to 2027, how possible is it to scale up the security? This was one state. NSCDC alone had over 10,200 officers. I saw vehicles from Plateau State Command, Niger State Command, River State Command, all converged in Osun State. But when it's a national general election, these resources are few and far between. So we need to rethink our security architecture ahead of a general election, because the security that we see during an off-cycle election is simply impossible when the entire nation is involved. So that's a conversation that needs to be had. Let me quickly look at INEC voter turnout and the role of IREV. As much as the people of Osun were the heroes of this story, IREV played a central role. Our ability to track what IREV was uploading in real time, and congratulations to INEC for being able to upload at a relatively fast pace. Now, I was fortunate enough to be a faculty member for Kimpact Development Initiative, and they had their own back end where they were able to track the IREV updates, the upload of Form EC8A as it was was coming in. And this created a great source of credibility and transparency because we were following the election in real time. So the question is, what does the law say about IREV? Because remember, there's still question marks about the new Electoral Act and how far IREV can be used and how far it's permissible in the court of law. Some people are saying, no, it remains a center for Nollywood viewing film. Some people are saying that now with its inclusion in the Constitution, we should be able to use it as a source of evidence. Even at the point when INEC stopped uploading to IREV at 8:58, and that went on for a number of hours, we all knew there was a challenge, and everybody was able to start raising their voices and raise alarm to say this process that has been smooth throughout the day is now stuck at about 80% of the vote. INEC, why have you stopped? What is going on? So I applaud INEC for not bowing to whatever pressures may have been happening at the time. They claim that there was a logistical challenge, but many people are feeling that there was pressure at the time, and the story goes that's the time that the president came in to congratulate the governor Adeleke, and there was calm, everything was eased down. Those are the reports coming from the ground. But beyond that, as I round up, I think that the spirit of Ogbo, that one should carry on to 2027. And IREV, let us relook at the role of IREV and how we can ensure that INEC is able to operationalize it for a general election, and that it should be permissible as evidence, because that's all we had on Saturday night when things started turning.
Game changer. Thank you very much, Bimbai. Rufi, your take on the stories this morning?
So, a couple of things. Ayo, last week, when I was telling the people the challenges they will face, you thought I was scaring them. No. I believe in telling the people the truth so that they know how to react to dangers. Yes.
So your risk assessment.
I like to say it the way it is. Tell them the risk involved. And I think it worked for the Osun people because they knew the risk involved. Don't sugarcoat it for them. Just like I'm going to tell the Nigerian people the risk involved. If you think because Osun people stood up, it will be easy in 2027, you are foolish, you are delusional. 2027 is going to be different from Osun. The federal might that they used and they couldn't execute, they will use it times 10. Because people that use federal might, they will go back to the drawing room and try to perfect it. That's why when people are saying, I saw some people saying President Tinubu is the hero of this. What President Tinubu? What President? I mean, people should stop that dirty narrative. They used federal might fully. It didn't work. That's what happened. That's when the game was up. If I want to open a new Pandora's box, INEC should tell us why the IREV stopped uploading for 3 hours. INEC should tell us. You see, these are the things they will never tell you. If you say INEC write a report now, they will start all sorts of mumbo-jumbo. So when people say, what did INEC do well?
For some areas, wasn't it?
What did INEC do well?
Beavers worked about...
Beavers work, how many percentage failure?
They said about 80. I'll pull up the report from
about close to 20% failure.
Yes.
I think I got it right with logistics.
Wait, when they first used Beavers, what was the success rate? In the first...
No, Beavers was a failure, I believe, in the selection.
Yes, that's what we are saying. No. Yeah. When they first used Beavers...
It worked in certain parts.
Wait, when they first used Beavers, in the first by-election, I think it was Edu, they first used Beavers, right? The election that brought Obaseki in. That was, I think, 2020...
No, 21?
Yeah. What was the success rate?
Beavers needs work.
So what did INEC... And that's why when we were telling them that... anyway, they've said that it's not because it's on Android 10. Something that's supposed to have close to 99% success or more than 90% success is recording about something percent success. And we say we should clap for INEC. Okay, maybe you can clap for them, but me, I'm not ready to share clap. I don't just give praise like that.
Sorry, let me just for clarify. This is Yaga's report. They say that in 80% of polling units, Beavers function properly. However, in 20% of polling units, the BVAS malfunctioned and it was fixed.
Okay.
So the widespread technological breakdowns feared following challenges observed during the mock accreditation the previous week, it didn't materialize to a scale to undermine the integrity of the process.
Can I just say something without eating into your time? I think technically that's correct, right? But if you watch the BVAS actually being used and how they literally have to go like this to try and get somebody's face before they, it takes more than 2 minutes to verify a single voter.
They should go
BVAS
back
needs
and
work.
fix this thing. When,
So it's not efficient.
It's not efficient.
when Mahmoud first did it in the first election, it was way more efficient than this. Second point, I've also given them a challenge. Okay. You know me, I will open Pandora's box. They should tell us why all of a sudden upload stopped for 3 hours. Because it was after upload stopped for 3 hours, then upload resumed, then some people knew that the game was off and they started leaving town. Federal might was being used. There are many things Adeleke himself saw that he can't see today because he just wants to let sleeping dogs lie. So for all of those that say this and all of, no. The big kudos should go to the people. But you see why I say it will be delusional is it possible now to let Nigerians aware of the danger and rally people over 170-something thousand polling units? That's the big challenge. You see, an election becomes too big to rig when people come out. This got between 43 to 45% turnout. That's why it was too big to rig. If the margin was about 10,000 or even 5,000, it's not what we are saying we'll be saying, no. But the people understand the risk, so they mounted the polling units. We all know now. They mounted the collation center. We all know in the case of another by-election, once they took the collation center for them, they pushed them out. That was the end of the election. Didn't you see people with fraudulent election sheets trying to come into the collation center? That the people started shouting, ole, 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 ole. So between that 8 o'clock and 12 midnight to 1, that's the time they win election. Federal might was playing heavily then. Because President Tinubu congratulated. It was after everything failed, President Tinubu congratulated now. Let's not stop talking as if this Adeleke, his head is strong. Bulldozer Loriel, his head is strong. And the people loved him and they stood with him. But how Nigerians can replicate that over 177,000 polling units, it's going to be hard though. Osun people can sing Oju to wo, but they still collected the money. Those are the problems in our election process. They can sing Oju to wo, but a lot of them still collected the money. It's not that they rejected the money now. There lies the problem. Because you see, voters will only tilt to a candidate with the possibility of winning because they don't want to waste their votes. So as the fact that they are still collecting the money, that's where lies the problem. So it's not yet to Uhuru. So even as we are celebrating the people's emotions are very fickle. When they pump it with lie and propaganda. So all of these things, another person I want to thank today especially, apart from all them Davido, is Davido's father, Deji Adeleke. The role that man played are not things visible to the public. Some things I would like to tell Governor Adeleke to quickly do. Anyway, who am I to instruct you as governor? Governor Adeleke, for quick reconciliation, if you can do it between this week and next week, erect a monument in honor of all of those killed leading up to this election. Call Ambo, call Najim Salam, and all the other candidates that participated in this election. And all of you should stand and say never again in our politics will be bloodshed in honor of the monuments. I'm not saying spend extra money and call contractor that will fleece the state. 7 or 10 coach of block, high enough for you to have a wall of honor, and you put their names there and call the opposition. And all of you should agree going forward. Because in the end, politics will always be a festival of ideas, but this is already a Pyrrhic victory, like Ebon Lasisi Olagunju said. It's a Pyrrhic victory. all the lives they were lost, we don't deserve to lose lives because people want to exchange ideas. So, for the Nigerian people, the battle has just started. You see, the federal might will be doubled in 2027. Because federal might will have to go and learn and perfect what to do going further. So, maybe federal might introduction in the election will now start earlier. Maybe federal might will involve more money coming out earlier. So Nigerians, if you think you are going to rate 2027 with Osun, you are deceiving yourself. Except Nigerians come out en masse. If there are 90 million voters, if 55 to 60 million voters can come out, 2027 election will be too big to rig. But if you think it's the less than 30 million people that voted in the last election that will come out again, the election will go Agus Alabao, Tefini Laba. I'll tell you the truth today. So please, Nigerians, do not celebrate victory too much. Go back and start mobilizing. People must come out.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Rufi Rimbai. Thank you very much. Now, Rufi, your talks about Governor Adeleke almost setting an agenda for him. He'll be here on the morning show tomorrow night.